Okay, so where we left off was we had just created and stored a preset, and we can of course do as many of those as we would want. But now let's see about adding a button over here into our software screen. Now we also mentioned, just as a reminder, that you don't really have to do this, that once you've created your presets up here, you could go to any of these presets like center louder and do a recall, and obviously then now that is recalled, and then you could go online with your hardware, and of course since I'm not connected to a piece of hardware, it's telling me there's none out there. But at this point that wouldn't appear. You would just simply be online with the boxes in your theater, and you would hear the changes in your sound system automatically. So again, I could go to Moonwitch again, and I could do recall the preset. This all changes. I go online, boom, that would not appear, and the changes for the Moonwitch show would be manifested in your sound system. But let's suppose we wanted to trigger manually from the software the presets to make those changes. And also, let's organizationally, sometimes it's nice to see a button for everything you have available to you, just so you remember that it's there, because this is a little out of sight, out of mind. So what we're going to do now is we're going to create a button. And the way that we create a button is you go up to the Main tab, and in the Main tab you're going to double click on this icon, which represents your hardware. And this is basically a big path that just shows all the audio devices we have in your system programmed into one box. These are compressors, limiters, and EQs, and we don't want you fooling with those because we have them set pretty much how we want. But over in the left upper corner, there's a thing called the Logic tab. So now you're over in the Logic screen, and you see representations for each one of the buttons that we showed you over on the Master User Interface in this area. Okay, so we come back over here, we copy the last button that we had there. Control C, by the way, the typical Windows conventions, Control C, Control V work in the Architect software. So now I've pasted this, and the next thing I'm going to do is name these so I don't get lost in them. And you can right click on the object and basically come up here to where it's named. A good way to do this is to copy from the previous button and come in here and paste the name. That way your names all match. Name it button 5 now. Now if I click off, notice that the name did not change. So you have to hit enter when you rename these things or you make these changes. So button 5, enter. Then I'm going to come up here and copy this property, this text from this one, come down to this one, paste it in, Control V, hit enter. Oh, we're going to change it first, make it button 5, and hit enter. And so now then, the last thing we'll do is name this trigger, and we come up here and gingerly copy all this, which we wouldn't have to. We could just type it in clean and paste it and call it Moonwitch preset trigger, since we created Moonwitch. Moonwitch preset trigger, and don't forget to hit enter, of course. So now you see that this is named down here, Moonwitch preset trigger. Now what I do is I come over to the preset button, and on it I double click it, and I get this logic source. So I copy that button, I come over to my Master User Interface, and I paste that button there. And I can move it around on the screen to put it where I want. I'm going to copy this little text block, Control C, paste it over here, Control V, move it around to get it centered up again. And then over here, I'm going to want to change it from being called Center Louder to Moonwitch. Okay? And so now, if I hit enter, I've renamed it to Moonwitch. Now, back to the logic. And what happens is I have to tell my trigger what preset that button that I created over in the user interface, that new button, I have to tell it what to do. I mean, it has a nice name and everything, and I'm going to straighten it up here a little bit. I'll just kind of show you how you can move these things. But I go back to my logic system here, and I say, well, when I hit that button over there, what's it going to do? And so you come over to the left side where the properties are, and you tell that button which preset it's supposed to be. In this case, it's Moonwitch. So I go, okay. And so now when I press that button over in the graphic user interface, over in the GUI here, when I press that button, it's going to trigger this trigger, which is going to then change the preset to Moonwitch.